because they're afraid for their job. And that's not the answer. The answer is to continue to follow the methods and continue to stick together. And if you see somebody near you or working with you or one of your fellow drivers doing something they shouldn't be doing, don't just put your head down. Go over there and talk to them. Explain why they shouldn't be doing it. Explain, stand together and keep everybody on the straight and narrow so we can get through this.
The facts, dates, and events presented in this video are from the members' best recollection and may not be fully accurate. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Always consult with your local union about your rights and duties at your workplace. The opinions shared on this video are our own and do not necessarily represent my employer's positions, strategies, or opinions. All views shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
What is going on, everybody? So today I have Greg Kerwood out of Local 25 in Boston and Richard Hooker, Principal Officer 623 in Philadelphia. And I am back from our break. So we have a New Year's coming up. Actually, this episode is going to be released on New Year's Eve. And anybody who has worked for UPS as long as we have knows that there's a cycle to things. And we're about to run into that cycle. And it may be pretty intense this time. So first, I'm going to throw it to Richard Hooker. Now, why is it every January we run into this cycle of harassment, layoffs, intimidation, and everything else?
Well, UPS wants to, as everybody knows the term, they want to trim the herd, trim the fat. Peak season is their busiest season. The volume is going to go away. After peak season, they want to trim everybody down. And they want to try to get rid of as many people as they can, whether it be through layoff or, unfortunately, through discipline. And so that is the reason why they're going to try to do any and everything they can to terminate our members. So we have to make sure that we are on our P's and Q's. Follow all of their methods. Don't give them your job. It's very, very simple. If you come to work every day on time, follow the methods, there's nothing they can do to you. And so, as long as we do those things, the company can't come after you. If they do, then, there's a grievance procedure.
I've been doing this job for a while now, and I've seen this company go through these weird cycles. And back in the day, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, they used to do peak season where it was almost like through the skin of their teeth, right? It would try to work us to death. We'd work till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And eventually we had one peak season where we were rolling volume. And then the news articles came out. UPS ruins Christmas, everything else. And now it's almost a 180 where the company is overstaffing as much as possible during peak. And it's something that I don't think they can judge how busy it's going to be. And I think they're playing it safe, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just giving my 2 cents on the matter. The next thing I want to talk about is harassment, how to handle yourself and everything else. I'm going to throw this to Greg. Greg, with the harassment coming up, what do you have to expect?
Well, if you're a driver, you can expect to be followed. You can probably expect an OJS. The company's going to crack down on appearance guidelines, uniforms, all of those things that they permit when it's convenient for them, but use against you when it's not. Like Richard said, they're going to be looking at any way, anyhow. Inside employees, attendance is key. You got to be on time. You follow your methods. But it's also very important that people understand, we need to stick together and follow these methods. Don't turn it into looking out for number one, because that's what the company wants. They want people to put their heads down. They want people to suddenly be meek, to be afraid to rock the boat because they're afraid for their job. And that's not the answer. The answer is to continue to follow the methods and continue to stick together. And if you see somebody near you or working with you or one of your fellow drivers doing something they shouldn't be doing, don't just put your head down. Go over there and talk to them. explain why they shouldn't be doing it, explain, stand together and keep everybody on the straight and narrow so we can get through this.
And this month, we're going to be focusing mostly on what Greg just went over, a lot of the discipline, discharge, trying to protect your job, what to expect when you get pulled in the office, how to handle yourself on OJS rides and everything else. We're going to be covering that stuff this month, so to keep you informed on how to handle things. Now, we're going to get into layoffs. I'm sure some people have seen it, news articles and everything else, but layoffs are a thing right now, but it's not uncommon in January to run into layoffs. Rich, what do we have to expect as far as layoffs go?
Well, the company is going to lay off members. Like you said, the news articles about the volume not being there. This peak was very, very light. But there is language in the contract for how layoffs are supposed to happen. I think each supplement has some different language, so I would get with your local, your shop steward, your business agent to make sure that is followed properly. And to piggyback off what Greg said earlier, this is where we have to stick together. Don't point the blame at the union, because I know sometimes layoffs happen. Oh, what is the union doing about it? Well, this is the company. They're the ones laying you off. It's not the union laying you off. It's the company. We have to always be mindful that everything that happens, UPS is the cause of it. Now, as a union, we do have an obligation and responsibility to make sure that the company follows the guidelines, which we will. But it's very important that each member understands that all of us are working together to fight the company. The union didn't lay you off. This is not your principal officer or your shop steward or your business agent's fault. This happens all of the time. This is my 25th year working at UPS. All of those 25 years, there's been layoffs in January. Unfortunately, this time is going to be a little rough, but we will get through it. Hey, listen, we got through COVID, and I know it's a different circumstance. Volume was booming, but that was something that nobody has ever seen before. This is something that has always taken place. Stay focused. You can fight back during the layoffs. Supervisors working is a way. File the grievance. Every driver, get on the 9-5 list. That's the way we can fight the layoff. So there's things we can do to fight it, but I would get with your local leadership, the shop steward, to make sure everybody's on the same page.
By the way, Rich, you just reminded me of something. Let's talk about 8-hour requests and 9-5s. Greg, what are the dates as far as when you can get on those lists?
The 8-hour requests start January 1, so you could have already put some in for next week if you haven't. And I would suggest people use them. They're one of the most underused things that we have. Remember, you have those. It's for you to have more time with your family. And the overtime that you don't want on that day goes to provide somebody else with work. 9-5 list. There should be signups going on between now and January 5th. The list has to be turned into management. It goes into effect on January 15th. As Rich said, I would recommend everybody get on that list. It is not a requirement if you're on the list that you have to file a grievance. But, going into a layoff situation, we want to make sure that the work is spread out evenly, and take care of each other. There are people tend to get into panic mode and say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure I get all of my 11 hours a day or whatever. But that extra hour that you're getting adds up to somebody else's job who's on layoff. So we want to make sure that we're using our days, that the company's spreading the work evenly, and that we're making sure that we maximize the number of our members that continue in their current position and don't have to be laid off doing split shifts.
And we've seen it before in the past where even when you're on the 9-5 list, the company ignores it. And so that's potentially more money that you're leaving on the table by not filing. So I agree with Greg on that one. Now, which actually kind of rolls into our next thing, is how do we combat this? Which, Greg, we already went over a couple of things, but do you have some more tips and tricks for the members?
Yeah, you want to make sure you're following the methods. You're showing up on time. You're doing the things you're supposed to do. People have a tendency during peak, for whatever reason, to take shortcuts to get into bad habits. I've had people reach out to me, saying we all know that we don't follow the rules during peak, which is nonsense. The contract is the same, the methods are the same, everything should be the same. But if you have lapsed into some bad habits because you felt the need to try to rush to get things done, it is now time to undo those bad habits and undo them very quickly. You don't want to give the company the ammunition. You don't want to put the bullets in the gun. They're going to be out there. They have no problem making stuff up when it's convenient. You don't need to give them anything, right? Make sure that the discipline they're giving you is garbage. Don't give them anything valid that they can hang their hat on, that they can try to build a case against you, put you on the street for a couple of weeks or whatever it is, because that's the game they play. They want to put people out, keep them outside, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. That relieves them of the obligation to provide that person with their daily guarantee. It's one less person on the books, and then they don't have to worry about hiring somebody new because they know they're going to give them their job back when they go to the panel. So don't make it easy for them. Follow the methods, show up on time, do what you're supposed to do, and everybody will get through it just fine.
So if you have not done so already, follow 623 Lives Matter, Instagram, Facebook, every social media. And also, Greg Kerwood has a few Facebook groups, but today we're going to share the Teamster Media Hub on Facebook. Be sure to follow that. Now, shout-outs. Rich, shout-outs. Who do you want to shout out tonight?
I just want to give a shout-out to all of our brothers and sisters for getting through this tough year with, practice picketing and the negotiations and dealing with the constant harassment by the company and all the things that we put up with dealing with UPS. So just big shout out to you guys and gals. I'm looking forward to what next year will bring. I know we're going to come out victorious. So just shout out to everybody, all the Teamsters that had to endure, not just UPS Teamsters, but all the Teamsters that had to put up with corporate greed.
Greg, shout outs. Who are you going to shout out tonight?
I don't know if it would classify as a shout out, but we had a big loss here at Local 25 this week. The president of our retiree chapter, Brother Joe Conti, passed away. Anybody who had a chance to meet Joe, Joe was a Teamster's Teamster. He was, bled Teamster from his heart and soul. He did a whole lot for a whole lot of people. He was tireless. I describe him as the heart and soul of Local 25. It's a tough loss. My heart goes out to his family, his friends, everybody that knew him. Just folks like him, and I'm sure every local has their fair share. They're a treasure. They were there. They were back in the day. They were in the trenches. They have the stories. They're an underused resource, I think, the retirees that we have in the Teamsters Union. And, again, it's a tough loss. Joe was a great man, and I'm glad I got a chance to know him.